Hi, Katie.
Hello.
Thanks a lot for joining me today. So can you present yourself to the audience, like you and your role at Bristol Uni?
Sure, yeah. So I am Katie Martin. I am our Student Enterprise and SME Development Manager, and we sit within the Career Service at the University of Bristol.
So what do you do as a job on a day-to-day over there?
Every day is different, which is why I like it. So our team is essentially made up of the student enterprise side. So on the student enterprise side, we help support students who are trying to build their entrepreneurial skill sets, which are applicable whatever path they choose for themselves. So, creative problem-solving skills, communication skills, teamworking skills. That could translate into employability skills, if you will. But then we also support student entrepreneurs, so those who are looking to take their ideas forward. And we do that through a whole range of workshops, competitions, events, basically a wide mix of things to help support and give that flavor for students.
And all that is happening in Bristol Uni, or do you have like external space that you go to?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, well, a lot of our support relies on having people from outside of the university come in. So people such as yourselves who are doing really interesting things or have started businesses, so coming in and sharing their experiences and their stories, or providing mentorship to help students develop their ideas. We have people that come in and deliver workshops. Just really a whole range of things. We also do run a networking event at the Engine Shed in partnership with UE, the University of the West of England. That's called Startup Drinks. So we run that once a month, but it's on the academic calendar, so they're about 5 or 6 times a year. Okay. So pretty much from October to April, generally speaking, we run a once a month networking event here. Okay. So it's kind of trying to practice what we preach and telling students to get out there, build their networks, share their ideas. So we've been partnering with them for a few years on that.
Okay. So basically your whole department sits on like 3 pillars, like helping the students that are potentially looking for a job as soon as they get out of university, or maybe while they're in university, helping companies like us finding the right talent for a next deployment round, and helping the students that have these entrepreneurial spirits to launch their company and go off.
Yes.
Do you specialize in one of those 3 pillars, or do you do just
No, we do all of them.
Yeah.
So I mean, on the SME side of our team, we very much are trying to help students understand the opportunities that exist with smaller businesses. So, as you can imagine, bigger businesses have budgets, they have teams, they have a real targeted effort of coming onto campus, being present, where smaller employers just don't operate in that same fashion. So we do a lot to help build the awareness amongst students, but then also to help businesses understand how they can come and engage with the university and students, and to help build capacity within their businesses, and then to hopefully hire the next generation of innovative thinkers working in small businesses. So we run an internship program, for example. We run over 200 a year, and they're specific for SMEs. And we get quite a lot of them that are startups as well, because students are increasingly interested in working for startups, whether or not they want to start their own. Okay. So we provide quite a bit of funding to help support that. There is a small fee for SMEs to be able to engage in that, but it's a really, really good way to help marry those 2 sides up. And we do see a high percentage that are of students that are offered further employment from their internship experiences.
And when you say students are interested to engage with startups, like they're looking to go to for their next job to go to a startup, why do you think that is? Is it because startup looks more exciting because on the picture they may have like exciting things in their offices, or is it because the work is typically more rewarding, or is it because they're looking for that small team? Like, why is it that makes startup interesting?
I mean, I think it's all of the above, really. So I think some because maybe they're curious and think that they might want to start their own business at some point. So getting exposure to the inner workings of a small business or a startup is a really good way to learn about that environment and what that means, personally, and it's a nice way to learn about startup. I do think, increasingly students are looking for something that gives them maybe more value or is more aligned to their personal values. I think a university that has, I think it's over 27,000 students, I think you're going to have all of those categories of why people are trying to pursue something. Increasingly as well, like just our engagement with SMEs, like we're trying to, and we've trialed a couple this year, where we're trying to have businesses set real challenges that they're experiencing and come up to campus, and we get groups of students to help solve those problems. And that is a means to kind of bring together both sides of the teams, like to build entrepreneurial skills and mindsets, and then that engagement with the business community, and instead of being sort of hypothetical scenarios, it is real world scenarios that they're working on.
And in terms of, obviously I guess that tech is well looked after, and you probably have a lot of tech students that are looking to be matched up, and a lot of tech startups that are looking for tech talent. And outside of tech, is there any other particular curriculum that is quite looked after or like quite seek for? Like, is there one or two areas of studies that kind of like shine?
I mean, that's a really interesting question. So, I mean, the university, has much more technical programs, but also I think recent in the past, I think maybe 4 years old now, sorry for misrepresenting, but we have something called the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is a combined degree program that was quite revolutionary, and I think a couple other universities have adopted similar models since, but it is a sort of with innovation program. So you could be studying anthropology, which is in the Faculty of Arts, with innovation. You could do computer science with innovation, and they very much bring in like design thinking principles and just a sort of different approach to studying subject-specific knowledge. So it kind of, I guess, makes students quite adaptable and understand like what it would mean to work in a wide array of disciplines, or bringing also together the multi-disciplinary approach, which doesn't really exist in the traditional setting at a university. So typically you'd be with engineering students, but through that you're with a whole range of arts, social science, more science-based tech subjects.
So I recognize that this is not a question that was on the list of what we're going to talk about today, but I think it could be an interesting one to bring in. In our space, so in the tech space, especially in the web development world, there's a big question around, are universities useful or not, basically, or are you better to just do it yourself and practice? Because the tech industry is changing so fast that we see certainly universities struggle to keep up. Where do you sit on that? I'm pretty sure you sit on the fence of university, but what do you think universities are actually useful and why they should?
I think I have 3 points around that, and whether or not after I'm talking I remember the three. But I think there's lots of different ways, and that is definitely something that we hear when we're engaging with businesses, that the traditional setup of academic institutions is that they lag behind industry. So there's a few things that happen within universities that help to align that more, so I would say. So we do a lot through the career service. So a lot of our work is engaging with organizations. So we have organizations that come to campus that maybe do quite specific things. Like we've had, for example, coding boot camps, and we're developing a project with a local tech career accelerator to do a 1 week intensive UX short course to help sort of build the skills in that area. I know it's only a week, but I see it as very much kind of like that between the university theoretical side and then the practical side, to be that employment ready, if you will. Increasingly, though, we are doing what are called engaged learning projects. So that is trying to bring organizations into the curriculum. So similar to how I was just saying, like engaging businesses through problem-solving challenges, but that is within the curriculum, so it's an accredited thing. So an organization will link up with an academic, design a sort of module, but that has that real-world application. I don't think I probably explained that how other people would, but and then increasingly, especially as the university is developing something, the Temple Quarter Enterprise Campus, I don't know if you've heard of that at all, but they're really, really interested in doing co-produced curriculum. So engaging with industry and creating the curriculum with industry so that it is,
more relevant.
Doesn't seem to be lagged behind industry.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
Because one of the things that I found as an employer this time is that one of the, well, at least the best developers that we ever had, and I'm only going to talk about developers because that's what we hire the most, but the best developers that we ever had were actually coming out of universities, but usually they were coming out of universities coming from like very not technical studies, but coming from lab studies or like science studies.
Yeah.
And what I think they learn during their university time is how to research and how to focus on a problem for a long period of time. That sometimes we see the ones that are a bit more self-taught struggle with that, like the certainly the ones that went through their university courses. They know how to research, they know how to read the documentation, they know how to read a long paper and find what they need in it. So yeah, it's a bit like I'm both sides of the fence. Like I like the learn yourself method, but I also like certainly see the value of that study time in university.
Yeah, which is why we try to, why it's so important to bring organization, I'll just say employers, like speaking from career service perspective, in engaging with students that is outside of the curriculum, because sometimes like that is a really valued skill of being able to research, but also potentially what could happen is not having almost like a sprint mentality of like, okay, this project has to be done within this, time frame. Here's the unexpected things that happen just in the world of work. And so we try to do a lot of facilitation between employers and university students to help, I guess align it more so, or just to help, just that interaction is really, really important to help students in the world of work, if you will.
That's one thing. So I'm French, and I haven't gone to university, unfortunately, but I know that in France, universities are certainly not the same that they are in England.
Okay.
The quality is much lower.
Okay.
Obviously, they're free. They don't have the price tag that British universities may have, but the quality that we see here of universities and the quality of the services that you provide is certainly up the roof. Is it? And my background in Bristol and my background in the UK starts probably 10, 11 years ago. Before that, I was in France. So is that kind of services that you're providing, is that kind of quality, is that always been there, or is it something new that is kind of like growing at the moment, or is it something that has been there for a long time?
That's a really good question. I'm similar to you. I'm not from here originally. I've been in the UK for about 8 years, and I went to university in the States, but I didn't work in higher education. Since I've been here, I don't know if I can answer that question how somebody else will, but there's a lot of increasing expectation on universities. So one of the key metrics that they're assessed against is their graduate outcomes, so where graduates go when they graduate. So in terms of the employment, whether they have it, whether or not it's at a level that you'd expect after someone had come to university, progression into further education, etc. So I think the increasing emphasis on those outcomes, which means then universities are ranked, that's not the only metric by any means, but it is increasingly important. So I think with that then does have to come the level of service and the quality of service that's provided. I think it'd be there anyway, but because of the increasing emphasis on those metrics, we have to be doing that as well, if that makes sense.
And now, obviously, so we've talked a lot about this link between the students and the SMEs or enterprise or the startup themselves. Now, what I'm very interested about is those entrepreneurial spirits that are learning and already are discovering problems probably, or want to solve certain problems and want to create companies to apply their skills and solve those problems. How do you help them in the university? How do you help them together? How do you help them to grow as entrepreneurs? Because I guess they're quite young.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously they've got a lot of mistakes to make in order to learn, and you have to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
But how do you help them making those mistakes with some sort of safety net, probably?
Sure, yeah. I think that can be a real benefit sometimes, as being younger and like, I almost think it can be harder when you're sort of outside that setting, or so but we do a whole lot to support students who are trying to develop their entrepreneurial spirit or who are setting up their own businesses. So one of the things that we do, for example, is our flagship business competition called the New Enterprise Competition. And we've broken that down into 3 distinct phases. So we have an idea stage that's up to £200, and really at that stage we're trying to boost their confidence. Sometimes like hearing no at an early stage means that they just drop it and don't do it, and that's not the point really. Businesses change, they develop or whatever, but just kind of giving them that confidence and a little bit of a boost to say, give it a go. Like, you absolutely have nothing to lose at this stage. So, we might fund people to buy stock to try to sell some stuff, or to buy equipment to help build prototypes, or whatever it is. We have the development stage, which is up to £1,000 of funding. And that is, we expect to see a little bit more validation around the idea that they've, done some market research, have maybe engaged with customers. And then we have a third stage, which is the growth stage of the New Enterprise Competition. And that's for a much higher prize. That's for up to £20,000. We have sponsors at that stage. So for example, Set Squared here is a sponsor, and they offer 6-month and 12-month membership for winners. So that is a sort of vehicle that provides the structure. And we do see quite a few that kind of come through all the stages, or some kind of come at any particular stage that they feel is relevant for them at that time. But that, I think, is kind of a nice safety net. It's a nice way to get feedback on your idea, but also through a lot of the other stuff that we were doing that I mentioned earlier about bringing founders onto campus and sharing their stories to try to inspire. We do a lot of workshops that are more particular to certain skills that you need. So we run something every year called Startup Week, and that has a whole range of different things, from branding to sessions about intellectual property or legal structures that are just like the practicalities that are very good to have at least a fundamental understanding about when you're trying to set up your business, pitching, etc.
As part of my job, obviously I do a lot of like events talking, and so I give a lot of talks. Sure. And I participate in a lot of like roundtables and stuff like that. And I gave a few talks at Bristol Uni and Bristol U as well. And the level of engagement that you find in students, the level of sparks and excitement is just mind-blowing. It's really refreshing to see that they're really switched on, really engaged, and they have I don't know if it's a youth thing or if it's a new generation thing, but they have no fear about asking the wrong question. They don't care.
Absolutely.
It's like, I have a question, I ask it, and I just love that. Like, I just love people just are confident enough to just ask questions, basically, regardless of if they think it's good or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, do you, in your the startups that are created out of Bristol Uni, do you think they're more like going towards tech kind of SaaS businesses, or are they just like going through normal brick and mortar business, or are they more agency type? Like, where is there a diagram? Is there anything that you can say like, hey, we're more specifically geared to help these kind of companies?
No, I mean, that is like, we try to provide an impartial service, and we're not trying to be biased towards any particular type. So we do see that whole range. I mean, increasingly, students do, I think, develop SaaS businesses or technology businesses, but we still see, a lot of food businesses, clothing businesses, students that are trying and creating their own brands and stuff, which, we need that whole mix, because like I was saying before, it's 27,000 students roughly, so they're all individuals and have their own things that they're interested in. Occasionally, so when we engage with Set Squared, for example, they have a tech bias, that's okay, but that's why like we as a team really, really need to have a strong external network that spans a range of different support as well, that doesn't have a particular bias, because it just wouldn't suit us to do that. So we just see the whole range. So we'll have pitching days for that competition and see 20 different ideas on a particular day, and they would range that whole spectrum.
Any kind of, I don't know if it's help is the right word, but any kind of emphasis on inclusivity, like gender specifically?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I'm actually really pleased you asked that. So, yeah, we actually had a look at that. So those 3 different stages of the new enterprise competition I was talking about, that final stage, so the one that is with, much higher stake, we weren't really seeing that many women applicants. So we started to do a little bit of research around that. We have loosened the language that we're trying to use in terms of promoting it. And so instead of saying like business challenge or pitch or whatever, and saying like, are you trying to are you trying to solve a problem? Are you trying to pursue an idea? Also, though, one of the main things that we changed this year is providing a 4-month package of support at that stage of the competition. So we have paired all the candidates with a mentor, and also are accessing, through the help of Set Squared, advisors and residents, so they can get specific information, advice about different areas that they might maybe have less confidence in, so intellectual property or marketing or accounting, whatever it is, which is amazing. And we actually didn't have that before, which, now that we're doing it, we're like, how could that not have existed before? But I've not done proper research, but we have seen an increase in the number of women. It wasn't quite 50-50, but near there. And, I just think that level of support has added, a welcoming touch, I suppose. But we do engage with lots of students from different backgrounds. I think sometimes, you've experienced something and then you're trying to solve a problem because you've had that experience. So we see, maybe students who had disabilities or something that, have come up with a really creative thing because they've experienced a problem.
Yeah. One thing that we're doing this year, probably going to be announced like February, March or something like that, but in partnership with TechSpark actually, we are going to run a new event called the Startup Kitchen.
Oh, great.
So the idea is to have a kind of like a monthly event where we create that safe and inclusive space for either like growing startup or people with an idea or a problem to solve to come and pitch and get feedback from that problem.
That's great.
But we really want to try to make that event as inclusive as possible and as gentle as possible, like no proper business law, as you said, like the language that we use, the people that we are going to use, the code of conduct that we're going to have is all around like helping each other rather than like trying to be businessy bro kind of culture. So more than happy to have your student. If you think that some would be beneficial for that, please like send them to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's a huge thing that we try to promote. Like, we need to know a lot of what's going on because a lot of our support is signposting because there's no shortage of support in Bristol if you're putting yourself out there and trying to get it. And I think those sorts of programs are amazing, and we'd love to be able to promote that. It's similar to Set Squared and NatWest are partnering with the Back Her Business initiative, and that's great.
Yeah, Natalie, I think Natalie, my co-founder, is going to be like some sort of mentor over there.
That's amazing.
We're one of these weird business that's been created like husband and wife teams. So I think that gives us like a different view on the whole. Weirdly, we never thought about gender equality and inclusivity because it was always like that for us. And we've done, when we started to actually really think about it and we started to hire like returning to work mums with having like very flexible hours and being more understanding, we started to have really good candidates just because we were offering stuff that were geared like that other companies were not doing. Incredible. So it's a really good thing to think about.
I think especially if you with tech, there is, I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but a disparity between women in particular in this, and I think that's great that you're doing that.
So Katie, 9-year-old Katie.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever wanted to work with universities? Like, were you always like a very student like kind of focus? Were you good students, or like what was your background like when you were a kid, and what did you want to do when you were a kid?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've always been like a sort of middle of the road student. Like, I do what I need to do, but I'm not like dying to get the top marks. That's not what kind of gives me, any satisfaction. I was thinking about this because obviously you sort of posed that, and I think I was probably like the stereotypical like, I'm gonna be a doctor, and like not even knowing what that means, but knowing that it sounds good, so you get like a bit of like a pat on the head, like, oh, that'd be great. But I think what that's translated to is like, I've always been in roles that I feel like are helping people or that are contributing to society in a different sort of way. So yeah, I mean, when I was 9, I was like, I don't want to work. I just want to like hang out with my family and my friends. But yeah, my personal motivations have always been to contribute to society, to do work that I feel is adding value, and yeah.
Any big goals for 2020, personally or like in your career?
Well, this is helpful because one of the things that I'm kind of aware of that could potentially be seen as a weakness is like personal brand. You know, me and my team do a lot of amazing stuff, but I think because we do, you know, quite quality but quantity, we do a lot, that it makes it kind of hard sometimes for us to slow down and share the stories or share the things that we're doing as a team and promoting that. So me and my team have been talking a lot about that lately and how we can share more of the impact that we're doing. Yeah.
Cool. So if listeners wants to know more about you or like Bristol Uni, where is the best way to go?
Well, good luck, you know, navigating it. It's a quite big website, but bristol.ac.uk and then /careers for the career service. There's lots of information for employers in particular, and that's employers of, you know, any size, shape, or whatever you want to, you know, call yourself. There's a little bit of information about student enterprise stuff, but mainly just getting in contact with anyone in the team, and we're always happy to pick up the phone and try to help people find solutions that are right for them or engage in the way that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for the chat today.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm sure we're going to be in touch again.
I hope
soon.
so. Yeah, I'm going to rope you into coming up to campus.
Yes, please. Yeah. There's a part of me that every time I go to give a talk at universities or like anything that goes with school or whatever, I always take a picture of my mum. I'm like, see, I didn't make it to university, but I'm making it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's something about that.
That's great. Yeah, you're making an impact on the world. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.